America goes to war. Men of the Army, Navy, and Marines reinforce the battlefronts to save the homes and ideals of free men from Axis domination.
While the Navy was training at the Vero Beach Naval Station, the Army and the Coast Guard was patrolling not only the river, but the beach area.
Few people remember that in those days, the U.S. Army had guards posted at the bridge. You didn't have free access across to the beach during the war. You had to have a pass to even use the bridge.
The Army was very concerned about our shoreline to counteract any of the invasion forces that they were expecting. They started a spotter program to watch the shoreline and the horizon for U-boats, for planes, for any military that might invade the Florida beaches.
My dad, being a volunteer in the auxiliary, he would man the spotting towers that were erected along the coast. He had poor eyesight, so he convinced the Army to abduct me, and I would be his eyes. So the Army would come and pick us up at night and take us over to the tower at the beach, and we'd man that all night. We would log in everything we saw. Then daylight would come, the Army would come in their truck and take me to school. We were being invaded by the Germans right here in Vero Beach, and we were the front line. Although their invasion wasn't to come on land, but they invaded us by sinking a ship. And they actually captured a German sub, and on board that submarine, they found bread from the local Bell bakeries in Florida. They found theater ticket stubs from the local theater in Florida, where they had come ashore. Even if you didn't know the war was that close to home, you know, everybody had to sacrifice.
The U-boats proved to be very destructive. They attacked the merchant mariners, they attacked any boats or ships that were in the Gulf Stream, and they sank them. And the local folks, through the programs that were put on by the Coast Guard and the Army, were able to go out and actually rescue these sailors and bring them to shore.
Hitler sent 6 U-boats from the Mediterranean to the east coast of the United States immediately after Pearl Harbor. Over a 9-month period in 1942, U-boats sunk something like 400 ships in U.S. waters. They were active off New York, off Cape Hatteras, off Cape Canaveral, and indeed close by here in Vero. And the Coast Guard recruited all over the East Coast people who had boats, and they just sent them offshore. And my father was one of those. He began, I think, probably in February of 1942, going off every night. He had a 33-foot fishing boat called the Kitzes. Audie Roach went with him most of the time. Otherwise, he would drive through town on an afternoon and holler, anybody want to go offshore? And a couple of people would volunteer and they'd go. Of course, they did not realize what they were going towards. Then one evening, May 5th, 1942, they were offshore, and shortly after midnight, and they saw flares rising off the beach. They headed in that direction. Within an hour, they came on a lifeboat that was packed with 22 survivors. That night, they were attacked by U-boat 333, commanded by Peter Kramer. He had another experience where in July of 1942, north of here off of Banana River Naval Air Station, they were in a boat and ran into 3 German U-boats sitting side by side. Audie Roach, as the story goes, said, "I'm not going to be captured and go back to Germany, I'm jumping overboard." Well, my dad said, "No, I think you better stay with the boat." And of course, all they could do is turn the boat and head for the beach. And of course, the U-boats were not interested in having a run-in with small fishing boats, so they disappeared in the darkness, but it was an experience. From writing the book, I discovered that my father was a hero. He didn't think he was a hero. None of those people did. I mean, it was just the natural thing to do. They were doing what they could to help the war effort. Until I wrote this book, and if people start reading, they said, "My God, we didn't realize that." They did not know. Even the people of that generation, and certainly the people of later generations, did not know that there was a war going on, a naval war right off this coast.
As we look out over the ocean, it's hard to believe that just a few decades ago, there were Nazi U-boats prowling the Gulf Stream right off our shores. The war was won and the Allies had defeated the Nazis in Japan, but we did not forget. Our community banded together to create a memorial island to honor those that had fallen during World War II.
What's important to remember is the men and women that served and sacrificed their lives in order to make our country free. If you visit Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary, you will have the same feeling that you have if you visit Arlington Cemetery in Washington, D.C. It's hallowed ground, and it's hallowed because of the memory of all of the men that have served our country and women, and it's a living legacy to the people that are here today. 3 years ago was the 50th anniversary for Memorial Island. I know without a doubt, 50 years from now, people will come and say this place is sacred.
As a historian, it is very important to remember our history, and especially of World War II. Lest we forget, this could happen again. So we need to always be vigilant and always on guard.